Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are in the world or whatever time you'll be watching this video. So, today, guys, I'm just gonna do a brief video on some changes to the visitors' visa rules in Canada. So, um, the headline is Canada cancels automatic 10-year multiple entry visas. So, Canada has announced changes to their visitor visa policies, effectively ending the automatic issuance of 10-year multiple entry visas, according to the new rules outlined by the Immigration, Refugees, and the Citizenship Canada, that is the IRCC. So typically, what would have happened is if you apply for a multiple entry visitor's visa from Canada, they would issue you the visa and the expiry date would coincide with the expiration of your passport. So if today you go in and you only have 5 years left on your passport, then they would issue you a 5 year visitor's visa. If you had 10 years on your passport, then they would issue you a 10-year visitor's visa. And this is different from the US visa, whereas if you go in and the US, they give a maximum of 10 years as well. So even if your passport expired in 5 years, then the US, they would still issue you a 10-year visitor's visa. And then when your current passport expires, then you would apply for a new passport, and then you could travel with two passports. So one valid passport that doesn't have the visitor's visa in it, plus your expired passport with the valid visitor's visa. But Canada doesn't do that. You can only travel with one passport. They're not into, you're traveling with an expired passport with a valid visa and then you travel. Yeah, no. They only issue you the visa based on your passport's validity. So it says previously visitors to Canada could be granted multiple entry visas for up to 10 years, which allowed them to enter and exit the country freely during that period. However, under the new rules, this will no longer be the default option. Now, visa officers will assess applicants based on an individualized basis to determine whether a single or a multiple entry visa will be issued and its validity period. This is noted by the IRCC. So, factors for issuing visas include the applicant's purpose of their visit, their funds, their medical conditions, ties to their home country, and more. For multiple entry visas, the officers will also decide the validity period and can choose to provide a time frame shorter than the maximum 10 years. So let us look at the guidelines for issuing single or multiple entry visas. So officers may exercise their judgment in deciding whether to issue the single or multiple entry visa. So some of the factors to consider. So they will look at the purpose of the visit. So is the applicant coming for a one-time event, such as a conference, training session, or tourism, or will they be returning to Canada on a regular basis, such as to visit close family members? Are they a permit exempt short term student or worker? Do they require parent authorization to travel for each visit? For example, as an unaccompanied minor coming for a summer program? Or is the visit for compassionate purposes, such as to care for a family member who is critically ill or dying? So here they will look at if you're with an organization and you're only coming for a conference, they may just decide to issue you a one entry visa instead of a multiple entry, because the purpose of, when you submit your application, you submit whatever letter it is. So if you tell them that you're, coming to Canada for a conference or a trade show or, whatever, they will just issue you with a one entry versus a multiple. If you are a student or a temporary worker, then they would issue you with a multiple entry visa, right? Because then if you're a student, it well, international student in Canada, then you'll be, traveling back and forth. So then they would issue you with a multiple entry visa. So funds. Does the applicant have a stable, ongoing source of funds, such as employment, that would be sufficient to finance multiple visits to Canada? If the host in Canada, which is a family or a friend you're staying with, will cover the applicant's expenses, is proof of relationship provided, and is the host well established in Canada? Has the host also invited other people? Do they have sufficient resources to provide for all invited individuals for multiple visits? Will the funds be provided by the applicant's employer, such as for a one time conference or business meeting? Or has the employer submitted a letter attesting to this fact? So now they're going deeper into the application process. So if you're coming as a visitor and you're coming and you show them your bank account and you say you have minimal funds, then depending on why you're coming, they may just decide to decline that visa application. However, if you are applying for a multiple entry visa, then they will look at your bank account and say, okay, does this person really have enough money in their account that they're going to, for the next 10 years, they're going to be traveling every year or, more than once per year? They will look at the economics and they know how much plane fares cost, and, they know how much you would need for spending money. So if you're coming, you're spending vacation, if you're not staying with family or friends, or whether you're staying with them, would do you have enough money if you're going to be funding your trip yourself? Do you have enough money to buy your tickets? If they give you a multiple entry, is it really worth their time to give you a multiple entry if you really aren't going to be using that multiple entry? Because if you don't have enough money in your bank account, they're going to look at that as well. They say, okay, this person doesn't have enough money to be able to travel multiple times, so they're not eligible for the multiple entry visa. So they'll be looking at those things. Also, they're going to be looking at, whomever, if you're staying with family or friends, they're going to be looking at whomever it is that you're staying. Do the hosts have good standing in Canada? Are those persons living off, basically living off the government, right? Are they getting government assistance? Because if they're living off the government, if they're living in government housing and using government resources, how are they going to be able to sustain hosting persons, and whether it's one, two, three, or four people? So they're going to be looking at that as well, because at the end of the day, if they're hosting, you can be getting supplemental income and resources from the government. However, they're hosting multiple people for, depending on however long periods of time that you're staying. All right. So those are some of the changes, and those are some of the details that IRCC will be looking into before issuing a visa. Thirdly, they're going to be looking at the medical. So, has the applicant indicated any health conditions that may worsen over time? Is the applicant coming for medical treatment? Has the client provided a mitigation plan, such as proof of health insurance? Or if so, how long is it valid? So, honestly, if you're if you have a severe medical condition, and if they think that, okay, by you coming into Canada, then you may fall ill, especially if you don't have health insurance. If they're going to look at it and say, okay, if you come here you may fall ill, and then you'll be using up the Canadian resources if you don't have insurance, they may not grant you the visa based on that. So some other factors that they will look into. Has the applicant demonstrated strong ties to their home country, such as employment or family obligations? Has the applicant traveled outside their home country? Have they previously traveled to Canada? If so, did they comply with the terms and conditions of their visa? And was the applicant previously refused a visa for Canada or any other country? So if you're applying for a visa, are you, employed back home? If you're not employed back home, then they're going to look at it and say, well, chances are if you're not employed back home or if you don't have any strong ties, you're probably going to not be returning home if we grant you this visitor's visa. However, I mean, even if people are working, they still also have their plans, right? So you can't always be 100% certain, but they will be looking in more details, you know in their decision making. Is Canada the first and only place that these people are applying for? Again, they're going to be looking into that to say, okay, how, when, why is Canada your first place of travel? And also, if they complied, say um you have previously been issued multiple entry visa to Canada. Once you land, they will give you typically a 6 month landing in Canada. However, if they give you even though they give you the 6 month landing, 99.9% of the time, they're not really expecting you to stay for the 6 months. So if you came to Canada and you stayed for 5 months or even 6 months and then you went home and then you're coming back maybe like a month or two after, they're going to be looking at that and say, okay, this seems to have been some misuse of the visitor's visa, because if you're working back home, how is it you're going to be getting like a 6 months vacation? And that is what they're also going to be looking at. If you're working back home, how are you going to be getting 6 months vacation? If you came before and you spent 6 months, they're like, oh, no, 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 something is wrong there. So then again, that chances are you will not be granted a visa. So for the multiple entry visa, so this visa allows the holder to seek entry to Canada from any country as often as necessary during the visa's period of validity. They have a maximum validity date of up to 10 years or the expiry date of either the travel document or biometrics, which comes first. It can still be valid if affixed in a full or complete passport or travel document. In this case, the holder must also be in possession of a newer and valid passport or travel document and must present both documents to the airline carrier in order to travel to Canada and to the border services officer in order to seek entry. So basically, yeah, you need to have a 10-year visa, I'm sorry, a 10-year passport in order to be issued that, 10-year visa, as I had stated before. So, continuing in the article, the IRCC said factors will include whether there is a short-term purpose for the visit, an applicant's current status in their current country of residence, changes to ties to their country of residence and Canada over time, and whether the economic or political conditions are unstable in their home country. So, and you know, again, we're looking at their process in determining what they will be they will be doing, right? So in terms of the short term purpose for the visit, for again, as we stated before, a business visitor providing after sales support as part of a warranty or sales agreement. What is the application status in their current country of residence? Again, we spoke about that earlier, will ties to the country of residence and the Canada change over time? So, do they have a common law spouse in Canada? And they live in Jamaica. They're gonna be looking, or any other country. They're gonna be looking at those factors to say, okay, maybe they will eventually come apply for permanent residence in Canada, or are economic or political conditions in the applicant's home country unstable? Again, for some countries that are experiencing harsh economic, or political climate, if they offer these persons the visitor's visa, are they really going to go back to their home country? Or are they just going to um, misuse the visitor's visa for Canada? So, guys, so there are a lot of changes, coming afoot for visitors' visa. So, I just hope anyone who is applying, you know, I wish you guys luck, and I hope that everything will go safely for you, and that, if you are traveling for legitimate reasons and you apply for maybe a multiple visa for legitimate reasons, I do hope that you are granted and that you are not, you know, turned down or denied because of you not satisfying what they ask for on paper. But I assure you, there's always checklists on the CIC website, so make sure you go through the checklist and make sure you follow all the steps, and provide all the documentation, answer all the questions that they require of you, because things have gotten more strict, more stringent with the IRCC and the non-immigrant process in Canada. So just make sure that you do your due diligence, do your research, and make sure you have all your I's dotted and your T's crossed before submitting that application, because it is not cheap. And you know if you're denied, or if, sometimes they may deny you for insufficient documentation, and guess what, you will not be refunded that money. So just make sure you know, check, double check, triple check everything before submitting, and go through their checklist. Because if you follow their checklist and you provide everything that is being asked for, then you will be in a better position. Okay? So, food for thought. Just make sure you go on the CIC website, go and follow, read, do your due diligence. Don't listen to people, because everybody's situation is different. No two-person situation are the same, no matter how you look at it. No two-person situation is the same. Your situation is different. Don't follow what happened to X person. Don't think that because whatever happened to X person is going to happen to you. No. Make sure, read, follow your instructions, follow the instructions to a T. Again, make sure you read the checklists and go through the validity or the eligibility criteria in applying for whatever programs that you're applying to for Canada. All right. Thank you for this video. And please remember to like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment on this video and let me know if you have any questions, and I'll be sure to answer some of your questions too. If you have any questions, and I can, help. And I'm not an immigration consultant, just so you know. However, I did come to Canada. I came to Canada as an international student. um, I also applied for my permanent residence and applied for my citizenship all by myself. I did not use an immigration consultant in none of my processes. Okay, so I do have, some understanding, and I can assist, where I can, or send you to whatever avenues that I know you will get your answers. Okay, so again, please remember to like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment on this video. Thanks. Until the next video.